Well, hey there, you're on the internet, I have some free time, and welcome to the Triple N Network, where all you newbie nib nerds can find all the news you'll need. Let's look at an ink today, shall we? Now, today's ink is by Private Reserve, and it's one of their Invincible inks. I'm pretty sure I've already done Invincible Black. This is Invincible Blue. It's one of their permanent inks, so it's designed to be waterproof, or at least. It's pretty permanent. So that was why I decided to use these two pens. I knew that was a facet of this ink, so I used this Pilot 78G, the broad nib, and actually all these 78Gs, both the broad and the double broad, are actually just stubs. And this stub is very similar to what you'd see on a Plumix, and I chose it because you can do that. So if anything went wrong, or if it was going to be hard to clean out, I could just pop it open. Same with this. This is an X450. Sorry, the cap was on a little tight. And I love my X450s because they tend to be pretty broad and pretty wet. And this one is. You can definitely tell by how much you can see through the tines. And I love that about these pens. But I also love it because you can do that. Which was, again, one of the reasons why I chose this pen. Because I knew that sometimes, you know, permanent inks, they can be a little aggressive. Especially in the cleaning out process. So wanted to make sure I could do that. And I actually always advise that. These are two very cheap pens. I got this for I think $7 on Amazon, and I got this for $9. If something happened to these pens, yeah, it would suck, but it wouldn't be the end of the world. And they're very easy to clean. It's a good way to gauge a new ink, especially if you know it has some interesting properties. So I always advise using a pen like that when you're, a new ink. Pen easy to clean, won't be the end of the world, something happens to it, etc., etc. So, yeah. Now, I wanted to see if I could find some comparable inks, and I kind of did, and I kind of didn't. Now, I'm going to bring this in close. You see how it's a very solid color, and I'm going to turn it to the side. I wish this would be able to show it, but there's almost like a shininess to it, and through here, like through there, in here, the really thick parts, there's hints of red-ish, so the whole thing kind of takes on a periwinkle sort of look, which is blue, which is tiny hints of like lavender in it. So I kept that in mind. Now, here's Mont Blanc's Permanent Blue, which is another permanent ink. It's very waterproof, and it's actually very similar because this one has a tiny hint of periwinkle all throughout. But yeah, so I chose that both because of color and properties. Here's Noodler's Henry Hudson Blue, which I believe is also one of their Eternal inks. This is for the Fountain Pen Hospital in New York City. It's a lot darker. It's thicker. In fact, I'm a little nervous about trying this ink. But, yeah, even on this very sort of cottony paper, it started to sheen. It does have the similar, even though it's darker, it's very blue through here, but then in these thicker parts, even though the camera doesn't really want to show it, again, we get hints of purple, so it's kind of periwinkle-ish. Here's Ackermann Royal Ackermann Blau, which is Waspar, which apparently means Ackermann's washable or unwashable royal blue. It's 00. And I picked it because it is very much a blue with hints of periwinkle. However, it's not as periwinkle as here. And I also picked Noodler's Polar Blue because, as you might be able to tell, they're actually quite similar. This one shades a lot less. There's less of a separation between the periwinkle and the straight blue. So, yeah. Yeah, so there we go. Oh, and in one of my written bits, I say that it reminds me of Diatramentis Document Blue, which is a waterproof. It's one of their document inks. However, comparing them, Document Blue, it didn't match as much as these, and I didn't want to have like 20 billion of them. So yeah. All right, chromatography. Now this is the chromatography as it is meant to be done. So I put the drop of ink, and I really wish I could get the camera to show it, but this initial drop actually has hints of red in it. So this is almost a purple, and then there's bits of periwinkle coming up through here, and the background is all sort of a royalish blue, and it goes up, 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 and you see that that is very solid color. Like when you don't have my hand behind it, that is still very solid color. Now here's where I let it dry. Can you notice a difference? Yeah, this bonded with the fibers in this coffee filter, because that's what I use for my chromatography, and then it wouldn't let go. In fact, I kept holding it in the water, thinking maybe eventually, once it became very saturated, it would pick something up. But I kept waiting and waiting and waiting and didn't, and so that's where the water stopped. And nothing moved. So, yeah. That's when I knew I might be dealing with a pretty permanent ink. Now, I wanted to see what it could hold up against, and I don't... Oh, do you see that? There's actually like a bit of like red sheeniness through there. So that was interesting. Now, the water test, it is really waterproof. If you see this, do you see how there's like a circle there where it gets a little lighter right around there? That was me with the Q-tip scrubbing and scrubbing and scrubbing until the paper started to come apart. Seriously waterproof. Now here's 1/3 bleach solution. Or again, you can see right here there's like the barest little haze. So I managed to pick up a little bit of the blue and move it. But again, that was me scrubbing through the paper. It would not let go. Now when I got to the ammonia pen flush, again, you can kind of see it's very close to the line. Camera, calm down. See right there? It did pick up a little bit of the blue again, but not much. And that's when I started to get worried. Now, hydrogen peroxide kind of got it moving, and it also kind of didn't. But yeah, I was glad that I picked pens that I could crack open, because there was some, it was like a film on the inside. It was like through here, it was almost like there was a haziness, so I just took a Q-tip and like wiped it off, and you know, still, this, I mean, the thing is, base date blue is actually very easy to clean out of your pens if you use like a 10% bleach solution. Bleach didn't break this up, so in some ways it's almost harder to clean than base date blue, just because with a little bit of bleach, base date is easy to clean. You know what, never mind, moving on. Water test, top down in density, Clairefontaine, 90 grams per square meter. Yeah, this is very much, it really evokes kind of a periwinkle. It's got a little bit of purplish to it, and here I'm going to try and get this on camera. Oh, there we go. Do you see in the scrubby, there's like this gentle haze of red, just a little bit, or it's almost got a little shiny. I think that's sort of what's hinting at the periwinkle, is just because it is this sort of simple royal blue with just this little haze of red, and it's sort of just winking at periwinkle. So, anyways, that small stub in the 78G took 14 seconds. The broad and wet JinHao took 21. But as you might be able to tell, those smears are not very big, but they are very solid. So this ink actually, once it touches paper, it really starts to bond with it. It just takes a while for it to fully sink in. There is not a ton of shading. I mean, there is a little, but not a lot. Yeah, no bleed, no feather, no spread. Yeah, I mean, it's really waterproof. It got a little bit lighter, but, I mean, like, here, listen. And then, okay, actually, that was, the bottom of my finger was touching them, so here. Now listen to this. It got rougher. I was really, really pushing this water test. I wanted to see if it could really hold up, and it does. It does. I mean, if it got a bit lighter, it's because the paper started to break up. That's real water resistant, guys. Next up is Fabriano. It's 85 grams per square meter. And again, I mean, here it's actually even more noticeable, this red in the scrubbies. Here we get a little more shading, but it's mostly kind of a halo effect, where we get the dark outline around the writing at the wettest parts. Now, that stub in the 78G took 10 seconds. The broad and wet JinHao took 23. But again, as we see in the smears, that is some solid color. I mean, it is really solid. Even in the thinnest parts of the scrubby, you can... In fact, I'm having trouble finding the dots in this dot pad. So, I mean, this is like a solid, very opaque ink. And it flows a little wet. So I'd say it's maybe about a 6 out of 10. Now, there's no bleed, no feather, no spread. I don't think there's any echo. I said there might be, and if there is, it's probably in the X450. But I really don't see it, and I do consider myself pretty sensitive about that. Now, we do get some movement. But I think that's just because I was scrubbing this stuff so aggressively. Now, as you can see, it doesn't get a whole lot lighter. But if I bring it in really close, I hope this will show up. It doesn't really want to show. Oh, look at the bottom of the bottom W. See that? Like, it almost looks like the ink is like drawing down. Yeah. It started to like smear off as I was dabbing up the water. That's the only time it moved. Now, next up is Rhodia, 80 grams per square meter, where again we get sort of like this red haziness to it, and I think that sort of is part of what pushes it towards a little hint of periwinkle. Now, the 78G took 10 seconds to dry, the broad and wet JinHao took 20. Now, even though we can see little bits of this quadrilateral paper under the thinner parts of the scrubby, this is just such solid color. You know, it doesn't look thin. Yeah, I say here, there's some like weird looking stuff right here, but I think that's just fingerprints. You know, like as I was scooting up the page, I think my fingerprints just got in the way of the writing. But anyways, yeah, no bleed, no feather, no spread. So maybe there's some echo, but again, I don't see any. I consider myself very sensitive to it, but maybe that's the quadrilateral paper hiding it, but I doubt it. I mean, I really don't see anything, but anyways, again, the water test. I was really, really scrubbing it, and what happened, again, was just that I smeared it as I was dabbing it up. That's the only thing that moves at all. You can see it sort of right there. That's it. Now, next up is Tomoe River paper, which is known for drawing out shading and sheen, and dry times, and echo, because it is so darn thin. But, oh, yeah, you can see that. Look at this. That is an intense red shine. I would not call this sheen because it is a glossy, we've seen this, it's a glossiness. It's not sheen like you see with some other inks, like Diamine Majestic Blue. This is shiny. But yeah, since this ink is pretty thick and it takes a while to dry, and this paper does a weird pooling thing, we are not going to get a ton of shading. It's just going to look pretty solid. There's a halo effect, which is that dark outline around wet writing. But yeah, that 78G took 16 seconds to dry. The broad and wet JinHao took 26, and I missed, which is why that smear looks weird. Yeah. Anyways, no bleed, no feather, no spread. There is probably some echo. If you're sensitive to it, you might consider this echo. But even where I was laying it on really thick to try and make sure I could get some shine on camera, we don't have that distinct like coming through thing in the scrubbies. You can kind of see where they are just because there's so much light around and this paper is so thin, but that's it. Now, this paper loves to let ink slide away when you add more water. And here it kind of did, relatively. Because again, I mean, look at how solid that is. That is still very clear, very dark, didn't feather, didn't explode, none of that stuff. Again, it smeared when I was wiping it up. I mean, honestly, a lot of these, if it wasn't for the change in the texture of the paper, you would not be able to tell I did a water test. And that's especially true for the papers coming up. Now, for the next three tests, I just used the 78G, except to write the name. And this is the world's worst 20-pound copier paper. So let's compare line width. Not this and this and that. Oh yeah, we got spread. And here, because we lose any of the shading or the potential for shine, it definitely starts to look a little bit periwinkle. But, you know, it's that royal blue that's like winking at periwinkle thing we've had going on. But here it's kind of more distinct because we don't have the separation of colors. Now, 3 seconds to dry. Very woolly. There really is no shading. There is feathering. I'm going to try and hold this still so you can see some. But, I mean, it's a really intense woolliness. But, I mean, look at this water test. If it weren't for the way the paper changed, would you even have guessed that I had done a water test? There is no change in color. There is no smearing anymore. Granted, more absorbent papers draw the ink in, make it harder to wash out, but still. Now, we do get this. Okay, that is the broad and wet JinHao, but everything else is that 78G. And actually, so we have a lot of these little tiny dots. And what's weird is this almost acted like a sieve. Every little place where it came through, it dotted onto the page below. Which is just so weird. I mean, like, it only came through in these little dots, but where those little dots came through, what? Now, next up is Mead Notebook Paper. And this stuff has been feathering lately, but still, if we look here, we can see there is not nearly as much spread. Look at the difference in line width. It didn't spread nearly as much. Again, we have no shading, so it is slightly periwinkle. And we do get a wooliness, but I mean, this is very cheap paper. This is actually physically thinner than 20 pound. So, 4 seconds to dry. We do get feathering, just because this stuff has been feathering lately. But we don't have any dots on the page below. We do have significant echo, which means you can see the writing on the other side, but not because it's coming out the other side of the paper. Look, even that X450 didn't start to come through. So that's actually pretty good. I think it, you know what, Pilot Metropolitans with like a fine nib, you know, those are just as easy as a 78G to crack open and clean. If you wanted something really permanent and you had to use this paper, I bet this would work real good for you, because it's handling it pretty well. And again, if it weren't for the change in topography in the paper, would you have even guessed there had been a water test? I mean, it does not change. It is only as feathery as it was above. I mean, it doesn't freak out, doesn't explode, doesn't spread. It didn't even come out the back. Crazy. Now lastly is Moleskine notebook paper, where I mean, I hate this paper, it hates ink, but something really weird happened here. First of all, we get shading, and we even get some of this red shine, a little bit. It's kind of hazy, but it took 16 seconds to dry. I mean, it took 14 for that to dry on Clairefontaine. Let me see. 10. Same pen took 10 on Fabriano. 10 on Rhodia. 16 on Tomoe River. I don't know what's going on here. And then I'm going to bring this in. Try and hold it steady, because we get crazy feathering. But I mean, that's something that this stuff does. But there isn't really much spread. I say there's no spread, but I think that might be a little, because it looks like it's, I don't know, maybe there isn't. There is bleed and echo and show through, and once again, all these little dots rendered onto the page below. I don't know. The feathering alone is enough to just say no for this. I don't think they'll work. But again, it looks like I didn't do a water test. The only way you can tell is because, like, you see how the corner bowed up? You could not tell. It didn't double down on feathering, it didn't start spreading, it didn't do weird stuff. It didn't even dye the page. I don't know. Anyway, so, yeah, if you need a really opaque, permanent ink that can relatively behave itself on, well, Mead at least, and if you like a kind of interesting red sheeny thing and you don't mind periwinkle-ish, there's this stuff. However, I do emphatically recommend you put it in a pen that's easy to open up and clean out. Yeah, just because it can leave a little something on the underside of the nib. It didn't dye any plastics, but yeah, it doesn't submit to bleach the way a lot of other permanent inks do, so something to be aware of. But it is super permanent. So if you need something to like address envelopes, I guess. I mean, how often do you address envelopes? So would you want to leave it in a pen? Never mind, moving on. For your consideration from the Triple N Network. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to the channel. And thanks for watching. Bye.